Okay.
be tried and executed by Beis Din.
And do you feel
Number two is that
as if you
extenuating circumstance in which
had any impact on them later on? Just one moment. What up, Chess? How you living?
Be returned to Tir
Hi.
as we will discuss.
I'm loving
It's
it.
funny when the judges, I kind of walked in towards the end. I could, I should have looked at my bag. I left my bag out in the green room. I was trying to get my bag out slowly, and I was like, oh, fuck.
The three cities of
Okay.
refuge in the Transjordanian.
Did you hear them deliberate?
Never has the slows to cross the Jordan River.
And what were they saying?
He identifies the three on the, we'll call it the
I
outside
said something about
side
he.
of the Jordan River.
That's something about a guy. Could have been maybe someone else.
And demarcated the three on the Eretz.
Okay, very well.
I just walked down. I'm sorry.
Okay, no big deal. Just for a moment, dude. Chess, how you living? What's good?
Now,
I'm doing best.
Oh, every day's a holiday. Every New Year. What'd you say? What did you do? Yes, sir. Are you excited for February?
Yeah, I'm ready for February. How about you?
Yes, sir. 100%. So, what's good? Did I send you my free send you my free social media guide?
No, you didn't.
All right. Will you send me a message on X, and I'll send it to you right now, and I want you to read through it.
Okay. Let me send you a message on X.
Yes, sir. 100%, especially for you, Chess. Yes, sir.
Three on each side have to be equidistant from each other. Remember, again, there is a very methodical layout to the Arei Miklat for one particular purpose. We want people to know exactly where they are. Exactly where they are. So again, number one, three on each side of the Jordan. The ones on the other side are exactly opposite each other, and they're equidistant from one another. Not equidistant, in other words, from one side of the Jordan to the other side of the Jordan, but on each side of the Jordan, they are equidistant from one another. Literally equidistant. Plus, very interesting. Here's what's fascinating. There were 2.5 tribes, right? Reuben, Gad, and half of Menashe that settled on, we'll call it the outside side of the Jordan. Even though, again, remember, it all becomes consecrated as part of Eretz Yisrael, what they'll call the Transjordanian areas. The rest of the tribes were in Eretz Yisrael proper. There are 3 cities of refuge for 2.5 tribes, and then 3 cities of refuge for the rest of the tribes. So that seems to be a tremendous imbalance. Why does the Transjordanian area get its own 3 cities of refuge? Rabbi says, unfortunately, there was a very high murder rate in the Transjordanian lands. Now, here's what's interesting. Obviously, those 3 in the Transjordanian area were identified and solidified by Moshe. They don't take effect until later on. So Moshe Rabbeinu must have seen what was going to be happening in the Transjordanian lands, and therefore, amazingly enough, they get their own 3 Arei Miklat. Tap of Yud. So the Gemara over here quotes the pasuk from Hosea. Gilat Kiryas Paul Eben Akuba Midam. So it's my Akuba Midam. On the Lamazar Shai Okvin Laharog Nefashos. That literally, again, unfortunately, there was a lot of bloodshed. Ultimately, again, in the Gilat and the Transjordanian areas. Okay, incredible. Umaishname Hagisa, Hagisa Dimerachki, Umaishname Tsi Dimekarvi. So this is very interesting. So you might not point out something fascinating, which is that if you look, the outer areas are much more spread out, but the middle area is much more consolidated. Take a look at that. That's the Mehagisa Dimerachki. Hebron, the Kabbos, the Focus, the Vuli Eretz, the Eretz, the Holy, the Sofat, Vultarat, Lanos, the Haaretz. So on one hand, you have Hebron and Kadesh, which are at the poles, On the other hand, Mishneh bin Karbi, Hari ben Chevron l'Shem, and then Shem l'Kadish, l'Miklat Mikan l'Kan. So it's interesting. The outer areas are much more dispersed. For the Ari Miklat, but the center area, as Rashi points out, is between Chevron and Shem, and Shem to Kadesh is much more concentrated. So what's going on over there? So the Gemara says, Rabbi, the Shem Nami Shkiti Los. In Shem also, unfortunately, there was a lot of bloodshed. The Chsev, the Hitesh, Ishki Yudin, Chaver Kohanim, Derek Yirtzehu Shkama, Mar Chaver Kohanim. Ultimately, it says, what is it called? Chaver Kohanim. On the Lozer Shayim Skabin Laharov Nefashos, the Kohanim Halom Shem Skabin Lakrot Shulos Beisagos. Unfortunately, in the Shem area, they would, it seems that Kohanim get together, right, in the granary to receive their respective portions. So in Shem, people got together, unfortunately, again, to spill blood. Now, also, remember again, here's what's interesting about this. It's the same thing in both the Transjordanian areas, as well as in Shem, that there's like a lot of murder, there's like a lot of bloodshed. Now remember, Ari Miklat only take care of accidental murderers, right? Don't take care. But what could be interesting over here, we'll discuss how all of this comes together. Like if you have such a problem with bloodshed, this doesn't like here Miklat is the answer to this. But again, we'll see how all of this comes together. The point over here is understand that the way the cities of refuge were laid out. Remember, this was done by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So the way the cities were laid out, ultimately, again, was methodical and prophetically based on the Baruch Hu saw that there was going to be a need for these cities in these particular areas. All right, incredible. The Sulaka. Now, 1 second. Now, it makes it sound like over here that there's only 6 cities of refuge. It's like 3 in the Transjordanian areas, 3 in Eretz Yisrael, but there are many more. Now, let's see, what's interesting. Shevet Levi did not get a portion in Eretz Yisrael. Shevet Levi was given 42 cities. It was theirs. Theirs to use. Not an ancestral portion, like not part of their family, but every tribe essentially had an obligation to give up some of their areas for the Levian. Every city in which the Levian resided also became a miklat, also became a city of refuge. To which the Gemara says, so there weren't 6 cities of refuge, there were 6, 3 designated by Moshe, 3 designated by Yoshua, but then 42 Levitic cities, which also served as our miklat. So it's a total of 48 cities. Why do you only say 6 cities? So that's very interesting. Rabbi, Halalu Koltos Bonadas Bishno Das, Halalu Das Koltos Vishalo Das Bina Koltos. So let's say it's actually quite interesting. So apparently, the Levitic cities did work as Ari Miklat as well, but they only worked if you recognized that you were inside of one of them. Let's say it differently. The power of the 6 Ari Miklat is that they absorbed and provided protection, whether the assailants recognized that he was there or not. It didn't need das. The Ari Miklat of the Levitic cities required das. It's fascinating. If you look at Rashi, being das ben shelo das, the first shot by the Rashi, in Shabbat shel das klita, in Shabbat shel das klita, hayodeh shehi kolekes. So apparently, here's the fundamental distinction. Levitic cities only worked as an Ari Miklat if the assailant recognized that he was in one of those cities and wanted to avail himself of its protection. The other Ari Miklat worked automatically. Right? You say to yourself, what does that mean? So just to illustrate how this can happen, we're going to talk about the idea that we really don't allow the Goal Hadam, the avenger of blood, who is the relative of the deceased, right? The relative of the victim, to come into the Ari Miklat and get the killer. So what would be interesting is that would work as long as the killer knew that he was in an Ari Miklat. Like, apparently, what if the killer just didn't know he was in an Ari Miklat? So is he protected by the Ari Miklat? So it depends. If it's one of the 6, the original 6, then it affords him protection even if he doesn't know that he's there. If on the other hand it's one of these 42, Allah reminds again, it does not afford him protection unless of course he knows that it's there. Fascinating distinction. Again, more about that in the coming years. So the Gemara goes like the Chevron Ari Miklatu. Now, interestingly enough, one of the 6 that was identified was Chevron. That Chevron was an Ari Miklat. Is that true? The pasuk says, "Vayitu l'kali v'Chevron kasher diber Moshe." 1 second. Chevron was given to Kalev. And Hebron was, remember again, one of the additional portions that Kalev received was the city of Hebron. So how can we say that Hebron was Nabosai? Because here's what's interesting. Ari Miklat to a certain degree, are almost like they become property of Am Yisrael. Like they're obviously situated in different tribal areas, but they can't belong to one person, but they have to be utilized by all the clans of whoever needs it. So how can you say that Hebron wasn't their Miklat when Hebron was given to Kalev? To which the Gemara says, Amrabaye, Parvata, Amrabaye, Parvata. So look at Rashi, Parvata. Following the Chasim, a smooth love, and it goes Ashma Nakno Kalev. Interestingly enough, it's fascinating historical note. So Hebron proper was not given to Kalev. Hebron proper was an Ir Miklat. The surrounding areas of Hebron were given to Kalev. Just the surrounding areas were also called Hebron. What's called Hebron? Yes, it's interesting. So listen, which is also interesting to note, by the way, because remember, where does David HaMelech's monarchy start? Where does it begin? Right? In Hebron. So it's fascinating to see also that Hebron ultimately, again, Hebron, this Ir Miklat, was also the initial seat of the monarchy of David HaMelech, which is really incredible. What did David HaMelech need more than anything in the beginning of his monarchy? He needed a miklat, right? He needed a miklat. He needed a refuge. Hanach was pursued from every single direction by every single person. He needed that sense of miklat. It's also quite beautiful when you think about it. I know whenever we go on trips in ROTHSCHILD, sometimes the organizers of our rapid tells them to going to Hebron is an indispensable part of every single trip to ROTHSCHILD. Because again, how can you go to ROTHSCHILD and not come home to see your parents? Like, how can you not come home to see your parents? It's like, it's like imagine your parents live out of town. You go to a chasana, like if your parents live in New Jersey, you go to a chasana in New Jersey, I'm too busy to stop by. What are you talking about? You live a couple of days here, but you're right here. You're stopping for a minute to say Shalom Aleichem, have a cup of coffee, you make a plane. How do you not visit your parents? How do you not go to Hebron? Right? How do you go to ROTHSCHILD not to visit your parents? It is also quite beautiful that the place where our parents is buried is in Ir Miklat. Because sometimes, again, every child knows. But it's interesting, one of those interesting things when a person is privileged to have their parents in this world, the one thing that always gives a child comfort is an embrace by their parents. And when a person no longer has that, it's one of the things that they miss more than anything. It's right, because a parent, sometimes an embrace from a parent, no matter how old you get, just gives you the necessary comfort, the necessary security that you need. Now, beautiful is that the place where our parents are buried is in Ir Miklat. It's a city of refuge. I run to my parents for refuge. I run to Hebron for refuge. I run to Masalatina for refuge. Incredible. And Kadesh Ir Miklat was Kadesh. Now again, another one. Kadesh was Kadesh in Ir Miklat. Like Mars Maksid. It's fascinating. Va'ari Nipsar Hatzadin Sar. The Hamas Rekes Vikineres. The Kadesh Ve'edrei. Ve'en Chatzar. I must say here, the pasuk is talking about fortified cities. And amongst the list of fortified cities is Kadesh. And you say to yourself, okay, who cares? So the one says, the Tanya Arim Halalu, Ein Osin Lo, when it comes to Arim Miklat, there's a whole list of laws. Right here, it comes to Arim Miklat. Arim Miklat cannot be Tirin. Tirin and Kitanim are small villages. Now, let me just say the common denominator over there. On an Ir Miklat has to be a self-sufficient city, but yet not too big. So it can't be a small village. Why? Because again, the accidental murderer has to be able to live in this city and not have to leave it. Because the moment that he leaves it, he's susceptible to the Gal Hadam. Right? The city of refuge only provides refuge as long as you are in the city. The moment you leave the city, you are exposed to the Gal Hadam. So therefore, you can't make a small village into an Ir Miklat because the small village doesn't have all of the necessities to sustain life there. So it can't be a small village, right? Hello, Kraken Gidolim. It also can't be a large city. Why can't it be a large city? Because if it's a large city, the Gal Hadam can sneak in there and potentially kill the accidental murderers. So again, because in a big city, you don't necessarily recognize everyone, so it can't be too small that it doesn't have what it needs. It also can't be too big. It can't be too big that halacha l'maisa the Goel Adam can sneak in there undetected. Ela ayoros beinonios. Rather, again, which are the cities of refuge, kind of in between its cities. Ayoros beinonios, in between cities. So let's say, so the point over here is Kadesh was a fortified city. Fortified cities were big cities. So how can you tell me that Kadesh was in Ir Miklat? Rabbi Yosef, not a big deal. By the way, there's two places named Kadesh. Two cities named Kadesh. On the Rashi, you could go sleeping the sleeping. Okay, it wasn't uncommon to have multiple cities with the same name. Okay, so Gufas analyzes this. Arim halalu ein also tiyun kitanin. So when it came to designating Ari Miklat, so Ari Miklat again can't be small villages, because small villages again don't generally have the resources in order to maintain the population, and again Miklat has to be a self-sufficient city. It can't also be a very large city, because again then we're concerned that people could sneak in undetected. And the Goel Adam can get in there. Rather again, what are Ari Miklat? And in between areas, in between cities, right? So not too small, not too big. Furthermore, again, Ari Miklat can only be situated in a place where there's a water source. Which makes sense, right? We want the residents to be looked after. If there's not a water source there, then we create a water source there. Right? We create a water source there. So let's say, by the way, such a beautiful idea over here, right? If there's no water source, bring a water source. There's two tremendous lessons in this. Sometimes in life, you don't have what it is that you need to be successful. So what's the answer? Get what you need to be successful. Don't complain about it. Don't worry about it. Right? Don't lament it. Change your circumstances. Right? So there's no water there. Get water there. Also remember again, water is Torah. Water is Torah, which is a tremendous idea. If one is not happy about their current spiritual state. Right? One is not happy about their current spiritual state. There's not enough water in my life, not enough water in my circumstances. So get more water. Get more water. Change your spiritual circumstances. We spend so much time lamenting that our circumstances aren't the way we want it, that my life is not the way I want it, that my circumstances are not the way that I want it. Right? Change it. Change it. You can't change everything, it's true, but you can change a lot of stuff. So if the city that you're living in doesn't have water, if the life that you're living in doesn't have the requisite amount of spirituality, if you're not happy with your personalistic circumstances, don't spend your energy complaining about it, but do whatever is within your power to pivot and to change. Incredible. Furthermore, again, an Ir Miklat has to be a place where there are marketplaces. There's a shop. There's a shop. All of this same idea, because you need the city itself to be self-sufficient. Furthermore, again, it has to be in a population center. We want people around. I both say that the idea over here is avoiding a population center. Rashi points out we are concerned that the Goel Adam is going to go ahead and round up a little army, a little clever, and try to extract the murder. If there's a population center and the Goel Adam comes with an army, there'll be other people to repel. The smart what we're saying, what happens if people move away from the areas we're surrounding the Ir Miklat. We add on more people. I don't know, whatever it is, the government incentivizes people to live in these areas around the Ari Miklat. So what happens if again residents of the Ir Miklat begin to move away? Revi'im and Kohanim, Revi'im and Israel. Bring in other Jews. Okay, bring in other people. They mochen ba'eliskas. They don't play zayin. So we'll say in a Ir Miklat, you are not allowed to sell weapons. Right? No weapons sold in an Ir Miklat, which makes sense because again, remember, if the Goel Adam manages to get there undetected, we don't want him buying any kind of weaponry in the city. Below claim the Suda, not even hunting instruments. Right? So again, traps. All of the hunting instruments are okay. The shoving, everyone agrees that halacha l'maisa again, you can't go and spread out nets or traps in the city itself. Nor can you produce rope inside of an ear mikvah. So apparently, again, the production of rope was a specialized skill. So the problem is you couldn't get good rope everywhere. We don't want the ear mikvah to be a production center of rope because, again, that would encourage the Goal Adam to come there. We don't want to make. Shol tehei regel Goal Adam etzuyasham. Incredible. I'm going to be sort of micro. V'nas al achas min ha'arim ha'el v'chai. So this book says, what's the scriptural allusion, right? For all of these things, it has to have a water source, it has to have marketplaces, it has to have populations, and all this stuff. Because the Pasuk says that the accidental killer will flee to one of these cities, and he will live there. What does that teach me? Do whatever you need to do in this city to provide life for the accidental murder. So I said this is really incredible idea. Now again, see, you have this tremendous balance, right? On one hand, the accidental killer, right? Is he blame free? No, because remember again, if he was blame free, that would be called ones. Ones, you're potter. So obviously, again, the concept that he's going to Gaulis indicates to us that there is a level of culpability. Remember again, halacha holds you liable for accidents. In case of damages, if you accidentally damage someone, you're chayiv. There's no difference if you intentionally damage someone, you are the owner. In the case chas v'shalom of bloodshed, so the halacha realizes, of course, there was no intentionality, right? There was no premeditated act of bloodshed. So chas v'shalom, the person's not going to be executed, but again, there is a good level of culpability and liability. So therefore, again, we're not going to call it a punishment, right? But rather, again, there's a sentence called galus. What's the rule of galus? Galus is a mechaber, right? Galus goes ahead and atones. So it's interesting that on one hand, we're going to judge you and sentence you to galus. On the other hand, galus also protects the person from the Goal Adam. Right? So again, we'll discuss why the Torah allows for this Goal Adam. Like, what is that? What is that? We'll talk about that more in Mitzvah Hashem. But you see from here that we want to protect the life of the killer. So therefore, again, we're going to put him in the city of refuge. That guy, he doesn't have to. But if he wants to leave, he can leave. He's just taking his life in his own hands. But if he wants to leave, he can leave. But we try to make life in the city of refuge, in the Ir Miklat, as palatable as possible, and have everything he needs in order to go ahead and live there. Tana. So let's say to take this now. So up until this point, we've been focusing on the physical aspects of the Ir Miklat. Now we focus on the spiritual ones. This is incredible. Tana. Talmid Shegala, Megalin Rabo Imo. Let's listen to this. If a student accidentally killed someone and is sent to the Ir Miklat, we send his Rabbi together with him to the Ir Miklat. Shneimar, v'chai, avid le midi t'tehavi lechiyusa. As the pasuk says, v'chai, the killer has to live in the Ir Miklat. Give him everything he needs to live. And they will say, what does a person need to live in this world? I need my Rabbi. It's true, I need a water source, right? And I need a shuk. I need a marketplace. I need my Rabbi. So therefore, if I accidentally kill someone, my Rebbe is sent to exile with me. It's incredible. I'm Rabbi Zira. It also says, Rabbi Zira says, Mikan shelo yishana adam letalmid she'eino hager. The Bible says, it's incredible. So now, he says, Rabbi Zira says to the Rebbe, be careful who you let into your shir. Right? Be careful you let into the shir. Why? Because again, if you have a Talmud who's not really worthy, you have a Talmud really who's not, and he accidentally kills someone and goes to Galus, guess what? You're going with him. Because the Talmud always needs his judge. And I will say, it's a little bit different for us. I don't know that we appreciate this as much contemporarily, because the truth is we live in such a different age, and we shouldn't take it for granted. We're like, a person can learn Shas without ever interacting with another human being, right? Baruch Hashem, like we live in a different time where Torah is accessible like never before. So I don't have a Rabbi. Okay, so I could learn, right? It's incredible to think you can master pretty much Kala Torah Kula without ever having a Rebbe, which again is not a good thing, but it's interesting to note. Now, obviously, we know that what a Rebbe does for us. Okay, so maybe I don't need the Rebbe to translate the line in Gemara for me, because sometimes we all need a Rebbe in life to be able to make it come alive, to be able to make it contemporarily relevant, to bring out the life lessons, bring out the yisodos. And that's from the Gemara's perspective, right? The Rebbe wasn't a gaping Torah. Torah Shabbal Peh was transmitted Rebbe to Talmud, right? Talmud, there was a Masorah. So literally, again, if I didn't have a Rebbe, I literally would not have Torah. Just different understanding, I guess. Therefore, if the Talmud accidentally kills someone, he needs to have life in the air miklat. Who gives the Talmud life? It's Rabbi. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan, Harav Shagala. Now listen to this. What if the Rebbe accidentally kills someone? The Rebbe doesn't kill someone. The Gemara says, Megalin Yeshiva Satimo. Ultimately, his entire yeshiva goes into Galus, right? In other words, where the Rebbe goes, that's where the yeshiva goes. The Rebbe goes where the yeshiva goes. So therefore, if Rebbe accidentally kills someone, he exiles his entire yeshiva with him. The Gemara says, really? Is that true? And I will say, by the way, I'll point out something very interesting. The Maharsha comments on this. The Maharsha says, it's interesting, right? That at the end of the day, Gemara doesn't say the same concept by the Rebbe like it does by the Talmud, right? The Gemara says that if the Talmud kills someone, the Rebbe goes into Galus. Therefore, the Gemara tells the Rebbe, be careful who you teach Torah to, because whoever you teach Torah to, you're tethered to that person. Which I will say, by the way, tells you something beautiful about the Rebbe-Talmud relationship. That my Rebbe is not just someone who I learn Torah from, there's a connection. Right? There's a bond that's there, to the point that if the Talmud accidentally kills someone, the Rebbe has to go to Galus with him. So therefore, the Gemara says, Rebbe, be careful who you teach Torah to. Now, it's interesting, and then the Gemara says that if the Rebbe accidentally kills someone, then what? Then the whole yeshiva has to go into Galus with him. So you would think the Gemara would say what? To the Talmud, be careful who you choose as a Rebbe. But yet, interestingly enough, the Gemara doesn't say that. So the Maharsha comments on this, and the Maharsha says something amazing. He says, because when it comes to learning Torah, learn Torah from whoever you can. Right? In other words, that although a Rebbe should be very picky about who his Talmidim are, perhaps a Talmud shouldn't be as picky about who his Rebbe is. If you find someone from who you can learn, remember again, I was saying, from who is wise, every person can become a Rebbe, right? Every person has something to teach me. Every person has something to convey to me. So whereas the Rebbe should be very, very picky about who is going to be his Talmud, maybe the Talmud shouldn't be as picky about who is going to be his Rebbe. Fascinating idea. So the Rebbe accidentally kills someone, the entire yeshiva sent to Galus. Is that so? Rabbi Yochanan, they both say, now what the Gemara is asking over here is as follows. The Gemara is saying, I don't understand. But if someone is steeped in Torah, Torah protects you. Torah protects you. So how could it, what the Gemara is essentially asking is, how could it be that the Rebbe is ever going to end up accidentally killing someone? After all, again, won't Torah protect him? To which the Gemara says, Shinemar as Betzer Bamidbar, right? Betzer is one of the Ari Miklat, so it says Betzer Bamidbar. Betzer is in the desert, Transjordanian area, and then afterwards it says Uksiv is Satorah. And the Gemara understands where just like Betzer is an Ir Miklat, which affords protection, so to Torah affords protection. So why would the Rebbe ever need an Ir Miklat? Lokashya, had be'inid the Asikba, had be'inid the Lo Asikba. Right? Torah protects you. When does Torah protect you? When does Torah protect you? When you're learning it. But when you're not learning it, Torah doesn't protect you. See, even the greatest Rebbe, right? At the end of the day, if he's learning, while he's learning, Torah will protect him. But when he's not learning, again, he's subject to the same realities that the rest of us are subject to. Lead by Sema, the other problem is incredible. Other possibilities, Mike Colton, what does it mean that Torah protects us? Torah protects me from the angel of death. The Gemara says, tells a story. Listen to this, Rabbi. So Rav Chisda was learning Torah, right? And the Malach HaMaves could not get near him. It was time for him to leave this world. But the Malach HaMaves could not take his soul because he was always learning. So the Gemara says, that's what the Malach HaMaves do. He went down a cedar tree to Beirav. What did he do? The Malach HaMaves went up on the cedar tree. The cedar tree snapped. It's when the tree snaps, like it makes a loud noise. So Rav Chisda heard the noise. he stopped learning for a moment, and in that moment, the Malach Hamaves took back his neshama. So what is this? So the other possibility is, again, Torah protects you from death. Torah doesn't necessarily protect you from everything else going on. So two possibilities. Either Torah protects you from everything, but only when you're learning it, or no, the protection of Torah is limited to the Malach Hamaves, but I'm still subject to other realities in life. Either way, Rabbi said one thing is clear, that when I am learning, I am protected. When I am learning, I am protected. What I'm protected from, what the scope of that protection is, okay, so that's a machlokas, but I'm protected. Power of Torah. So we'll say, interestingly enough, why is it that Ruvain ultimately, again, I will say that interestingly enough, the first Ari Miklat were established in the tribal area of Ruvain. So why does Ruvain get this close? That his tribal area is the first to host the Ari Miklat. Because Ruvain was the first to try to effect salvation for another Jew. Where did that happen? Ruvain heard what was going on when the brothers turned on Yosef, and Ruvain saved Yosef from his brothers. So because Ruvain saved Yosef from his brothers, therefore again he is privileged to go ahead and host the Ari Miklat. The Ari Miklat, the first Ari Miklat identified were the Ari Miklat in his tribal area, which Rabbi tells us something absolutely amazing. Sometimes in life we do something and we don't necessarily see the fruits of our labor. It's important to always operate with the understanding that whenever a Yid does something holy and positive, there is always a repercussion and a result. Sometimes the result is seen in our lifetime, and sometimes it's only seen generations later. Where do you see the result of Ruvain stepping up and defending Yosef? Generations later, when the first Ir Miklat was placed in his tribal area. It's important. So, we often become too focused on cause and effect. And if I do something good, I want to see the effect of that good right here, right now. And if I can't see it, then it must mean that my action was meaningless. And remember again, I will say, the Yid exists in multiple generations. Right? Baruch was past, present, and future. So too, we're also past, present, and future. And I recognize that every single thing that I do that is positive has a positive effect. Whether I'll see it or not is a different discussion. What does it mean when his pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu separated 3 Ari Miklat in the Transjordanian areas? Literally, cause the sun to shine accidental killers. Meaning, give them hope. Give them hope. Give them the Miklat. Give them a city of refuge. He did the Amri. Others say, Baruch said to Moshe, through your separation, you have caused the sun to come up for accidental killers. Give hope. Give hope. We'll say, sometimes the greatest thing you can do in life is give hope to someone who feels like they are in a hopeless situation. Right? At the end of the day, the person kills, right? Ruvain killed Shimon accidentally. He didn't mean to. Okay, he could have been more vigilant. He could have been more careful. He could have been more attentive. Understood. But Ruvain's a good guy. Right? He didn't mean to do anything wrong. And you can imagine just the debilitating feeling of failure in the aftermath of that act. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Moshe Rabbeinu says, listen, life is going to take a dramatically different turn. Life has taken a dramatically different turn. But here's a new city. Create for yourself a new life. Right? Everything you need is going to be there. Sister Moshe, you've given hope to hopeless people. That is the greatest accomplishment one can have in this world. It's incredible. So the Gemara goes right here. Good. Darshav Simoi. Ma'itich Siv. This is beautiful. Ma'itich Siv. What's the meaning of the pasuk? Oiv Kasef. Lo Yispa Kasef. Umui Ohev Ba'amon Lo Tivua. So literally it means one who loves silver will never have enough silver. And one who loves Bahamon, plenty, Lo Tivua, will never have enough. What does this mean? So this is beautiful. So generally, by the way we understand this pasuk, right, is the pasuk is actually pretty self-explanatory. Right? It's Koheles. Right? What does it mean? Because if you love money, you will never have enough money. That's what we generally, again, understand it. I will say, again, there is nothing wrong with liking money. There is nothing wrong with really liking money. There is nothing wrong with working very hard to amass money. There's also nothing wrong with not being content with a little bit of money and wanting. This is not like the wealth gospel over here, but this is right. This is like it's okay. It's okay to want to be wealthy, and it's okay to work hard to be wealthy. The problem is when you love money. Like love is a very strong emotion. Right? There are two things in this world that you should love. Right? You should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and right, Hashem Elokecha. Right? You should love, and including in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Torah, is Am Yisrael, is Eretz Yisrael. V'Havtecha Kamocha. You should love Klal Yisrael. Shall Klal Yisrael. That's it. Including Klal Yisrael, of course, is your family. Including right. Those are the things in this world that you should love. That's what love should be reserved for. Everything else, you should like. I remember again one of the most times I forgot the context of it, but somebody said they love football. They love football. I love football. Really? Like you love football? I said, like you use that same mouth to tell your wife that you love her. Right? I love you, right? I love you, and I love football. Right? So I love my life partner, and I love oversized men in tight pants jumping all over each other. Right? I said, you understand, like you'll never be able to tell your wife you love her, but in the same way, because you literally use that same exact word to describe like this barbaric event of people jumping on top of each other, receiving millions of dollars for it, and a bunch of people paying to watch it. Like just understand, like that, like just you know what I'm saying. You used the same word for it. I would say we have to be so careful how we use our words, because especially that word love. That word love is a strong word, right? Like Shlomo says in God's Re'ei Chaim im ha'isha asher ahavta. Right? See a beautiful life with a woman who you love. Love is used for marriage. Love is used for Megiddos. Love is used for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Love is used for Am Yisrael. Love is used for Eretz Yisrael. Everything else you could like. You could like football. You could like football. You could like pizza. You could like chicken wings, right? You could like a lot of different things in this world. Like whatever you want. But love is referred. So therefore, again, we normally say, so that's why always Kasef, the danger with money is when you love it. You want to like it a lot. You want to pursue it. You want ultimately, again, to acquire it. Atzlacha. Absolutely fine. The moment you love it is the moment where things become a little bit complicated. So therefore, the Pashup Shad is and if you love money, what's the problem? If you love it, you'll never have enough of it. You'll never have enough of it. Because we want to say, by the way, that's the power of love. Right? The power of love. Like what is the shorish of love? Is have, is to give. When you love something, you can never
What's
get
up, sluts?
enough of it. And that's why it's
I
so
slept till
powerful.
2 o'clock.
In my marriage, I love
Really?
my wife,
Oh.
and therefore, again,
I airmailed that
it's
bitch.
never enough. I always want to do more.
Why?
I always want to be more. I always want to do
Sexiness?
more.
Alright, here we go, folks. No one really knows for sure. Elu ve Elu Divrei Elokim Chaim. But this is the Mazorah we live by. It's what I do, baby. You do whatever the fuck you want. There's but one rule. Don't fuck up.
Interestingly enough, the Gemara dashes it differently.
Really? There's but one rule. Do as I will. Just don't fuck up. Alright.
This is Moshe.
Now what?
Right? What is Moshe?
Let's go to Yiddish.
Listen, Moshe knew
We,
full well.
I get excited to do these things, and then when I have to do them,
The Transjordanian
you
area
get excited.
would not take effect until the Green Eretz Yisrael.
Right, so we've got Amachai, that's
was
what
set aside.
you read.
Moshe also
Look at
that
this
thought.
now.
He was not crossing Jordan.
Halavai, that's what she wants to have. I wish. Amachai,
on the other side of the Jordan.
something so great, pleasurable that it can bring back the life to the Yiddish kind. Yenta, it's kind of a fetish, right? It's a talkative bitch. Tachlis, that's brass tacks, motherfucker. No, right, Basher, that's a. There's Basherda and Basherda.
You know what? If there's an opportunity to
Really?
do
Oh,
something,
yeah, everybody
I'm
knows
gonna
that.
take it. I'm gonna
Really?
take it. Even if it's not complete.
Of course.
An opportunity for service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
All right,
An opportunity
mishmash.
for spiritual
Mishmash, I was
growth.
taking them
An
back.
opportunity for
All of
doing
us, all right,
absolutely
everybody knows that.
beautiful.
Buckets,
You
that
wanna
means
know the greatness of At the end of the
nothing.
day, what
Really?
makes
It means
Moshe Rabbeinu
bullshit.
What makes
Really?
Moshe
It just means
Rabbeinu is when
good
he sees an
content.
opportunity,
Did we do that one yet? Yeah,
What
it
do we
means
do when opportunities come our way? What do we do when opportunities? We
holiday.
analyze.
What's l'chaim? That's to life, baby.
I'm gonna take it under advisement.
A wish for life. The word l'chaim means to life and has been a traditional which Jews share when raising their glasses in celebration for at least 2,000 years. You can read the fascinating treatment of why the term is chosen here. Refer to the act of sharing a glass of spirits, and even to the drink itself. Thus, shot glasses are l'chaim glasses, and making a toast is making a l'chaim, an engagement celebration. The next bit is going to veer off a bit. The next bit is going to veer a bit off course, so please bear with me. In Jewish times, it was customary for a Jewish couple to become legally engaged a full year before they would marry. During this time, the bride and groom were considered married, but they did not yet live together. This quasi-marriage state was known as erusin. With the destruction of the temple and the disruption of Jewish life at that time, this became increasingly difficult. What would happen if the bride or the groom were captured or needed to flee from marauders during the year-long wait? Thus, it was decided that erusin should take place in tandem with the marriage itself and be performed almost immediately before the 7 blessings are recited and the couple is joined in full matrimony. But what was to happen to the engagement? At the time when the two parties decided to go forward with the wedding, a contract was drawn up specifying the date of the wedding and other considerations, but that too presented its share of difficulties. Backing out of the contract is no simple matter on a legal or a spiritual plane. It has therefore become customary in many communities to delay the largely perfunctory contract signing to the wedding day as well. So, what is left for the engagement? A verbal commitment, called a vort in Yiddish. Thus, a sit-down engagement celebration has come to be known as a vort. Since the occasion will most certainly be celebrated over a glass of firewater and party worship l'chaim, a smaller, more informal party is often called a l'chaim. So now you know. If someone invites you to come to a l'chaim, get your party clothes ready. If someone invites you to make a l'chaim, get ready for a shot of good stuff and think of something nice to say in return. If you're invited to make multiple l'chaim, look for a designated driver.
What does this mean? In other words, a person who teaches Torah in public should have the requisite knowledge.
Alright, is that the end of your story? Now, why is the term chosen? Why did you just choose l'chaim? How long is this?
That's a person who should teach Torah to the masses.
It's long enough for me to be able to drink coffee. Oh yeah, it's called coffee and Kabbalah and coffee. Really? Yeah, dog. And what about it? It's a thing.
One who is able to allow all of the Hashem's praises to be. In other words, who should teach Torah to the masses? Who should teach Torah in public? Only one who has the requisite tools, i.e. the knowledge, to be able to do so. What does this mean? This is beautiful. Whoever loves Talmidei Chachamim, whoever loves those who teach Torah to the masses, or we'll say, whoever values the Talmid Chacham, whoever values Talmid Chacham, lo teruah, will himself have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. This is beautiful. If you love Talmidei Chachamim and you revere Talmidei Chachamim, you will have children who are Talmidei Chachamim. I will say, by the way, that's not like a chibi hocus pocus thing. It's very simple. Our children see who we look up to. They see who we look up to. So if my kids see me look up to the guy who has the most money, the nicest car, the biggest house, the most expensive vacation, so again, that's going to form their own perceptions of what's important in life. So they're going to say, oh, what's important? So material success. And material success is wonderful, it's beautiful. But that's, right? On the other hand, if my children see that what I value in this world is accomplishment in Torah, the people I look up to, are the people that come to us. And I want to just point out, it's never either or, right? In other words, just so far, one of the most important things in Yiddish life, material success and spiritual success are not either or. Right? It's not like you can have one or the other. The Gemara says that dancing can be all spatial chalas. You can eat at two tables. You can eat at the table of spiritual success and a table of material success. It's hard. It's a lot of hard work. And most people are not able to be successful at both tables, but you can do it if you work hard enough. So if my children see that what do I look up to? What do I revere? I revere spiritual success. I revere people who work hard in their spirituality. I revere people ultimately who become Hamid Chachamim, and my children will become better because my children see that that's what I hold out as a successful person. There was a deep down, like Freud wasn't the first person to discover that our relationship with our parents is the most important relationship. Deep down, what does every single child want to do?
I wonder if it has a wine bladder in a
give
box.
nachas to their parents. At the end of the day, really all I want to do is I want to know that my parents are proud of me. That's all. So subconsciously, again, how do I know how to make my parents proud?
That was sick.
My parents themselves.
Was it? It was whatever.
My parents revere, right? What do my parents put on a pedestal? And that's
There's something else we had to say. Oh yeah, let's do the date. It's 12th of Shabbat, 5786, Friday, January 30th.
Rabbis looked when they were talking about this in the Beis Medrash, they looked at Rabbi, who was a great Talmid Chacham, and his sons were great Talmid Chacham as well. He loved Talmid Chacham. He was a great Talmid Chacham. Rabbi Shemar Kala Oiv Lilmod B'Hamon Lo Torah. This is beautiful. Whoever loves to learn in a group, B'Hamon in a group, ultimately Lo Tevua will be successful. He'll be successful. Ultimately, Lo Tevua means he'll have the great necessary resources. He'll acquire knowledge. This is beautiful. The worst thing one could do is learn by themselves. Why? What happens when you learn by yourself? Let's say if you learn by yourself and you make a mistake, then what happens? There's no one there to correct you. No one there to correct you. So therefore, again, sometimes the greatest Torah accomplishment we have in this world is when we are able to learn with others. Whether it's with a chavrusa, with a shir, with a chabura, there is wisdom that comes from collective learning. Conversely, there are mistakes that are often made when learning by myself, and then because there's no one else there to correct me, those mistakes become reinforced. Not only that, when you learn by yourself, you become foolish. You become foolish, right? Because at the end of the day, again, I'm making mistakes, and there's no one there to correct my mistakes. Not only that, but as a result of learning and making mistakes and reinforcing mistakes, I end up actually sinning. Because again, my knowledge base is corrupted. So it's beautiful. Literally, again, the gates of sun were closed. Ravina Amar, Kala Oev, Lumot, Bahamon, and Lo Tevua. The Amar Rabbi is beautiful. Harbe Torah, what does this mean? Whoever goes there and learns with a group, right, learns with others, Lo Tevua will amass even greater amounts of knowledge. The Amar Rabbi,
it's interesting that they have normal 1.25, 1.5, not 1.75.
I learned even more from my friends. I learned even more from my friends. But the most I learned was from my students. So let's say such a beautiful idea. I learned a lot from my Rabbi. I learned a lot ultimately again from my friends. The most I learned ultimately again was not just saying a personal level. It's one of the things that to me is really personally inspiring. Okay, so I want to follow my guest. So there's not as much Messiah involved with getting up that. Okay, but like I play me, I come in
972 scam.
And now such things and like this message is happening. 5:40 in the morning. To me, it is inspiring. I'm inspired. I'm so excited. This is my job. Right? This is Baruch Hashem's Achis. Baruch Hashem's job is what I do. Some things I see all of you. I see the Chavra, and everybody's like, oh, and again, culture work, and this, and then pulled in a million different directions, and there could be a million different excuses. to not show up, to not daven with a minion, right? To not ever yet again. The Hebrew makes it considered the ethical is not this Gemara. I'll tell you, just on a personal level, the inspiration I get from seeing all of you every single morning is greater than any level of inspiration I've received. From the greatest Rav, from the greatest Hamachaka, from the greatest Shir, from the greatest Torahs, seeing even living lives, Torah-centric lives, and depriving themselves of much necessary sleep or rest in order to be, and then running off to work. Right? It's not the shot that like people go ahead and finish chapters. So I'm going to go back in for a nap, afterwards. Right? A lot of times, some of you are. Right. Maybe you are running right from here to the office, right from here to work, right from here, or cut or this and that. And sometimes the greatest inspiration is not from something that a person says, but it's how they live. Mamish, I see this. I'm Zohar to live this Gemara from all of you each and every day. I'm Rabbi Shimon Levi. My Sid, what's this beautiful Gemara? Ondos hayura glenet sharat mishalayim. So what Ondos hayura glenet sharat mishalayim. Then you say, how would I be Zohar here? Not just read this passage, just as an anticipatory to how I should be Zohar here to be able to live here at Rabbi. What does it mean when it says our feet were standing in Yerushalayim? They'll say, this is incredible. What allowed us to go ahead and be successful in war, right? In war. War, ultimately, again, Shalayim, Yerushalayim. What is this Tehillim? This is David HaMelech saying. What allowed us to be successful in all of our battles? Ultimately, again, Sha'arei Yerushalayim Sha'ir Oskim HaTorah. It was the gates of Yerushalayim who were engaged in Torah. David HaMelech understood that what allowed Klal Yisrael to be successful in war, ultimately, again, it was the cause of Torah which propelled the army. I will say, this Gemara is so incredibly important. They will say, this speaks to the core of one of the most raging issues in Klal Yisrael right now. About who should serve in the army, how they should serve in the army. They will say, you know what the greatest problem within Klal Yisrael right now in this issue? It's not about what's more important, the Torah or the army. It's a foolish question. You need to focus on that. Klal Yisrael needs an army, and Klal Yisrael needs Torah. You know what the challenge is? The challenge is that each looks at the other, or many segments of each look at the other as opposite forces. Right? So sometimes, and again, sometimes the world of Torah looks at itself as its own self-contained thing. We are the most important. We're the most important, right? And without us, there's nothing. That's false. We need Torah, but we also need an army. We also need an army. That's what Klal Yisrael always works. You think David HaMelech was a Talmud Chacham? You think David HaMelech wouldn't have preferred just to be in the base measures? Of course.
972. Scam.
But again, David HaMelech understood Klal Yisrael needs an army. But the army has to be backed by Torah. Right? But again, if there's only Torah and there's no army, that's not going to work. But if the army thinks that all they need is the army, and Torah is not important, that is an army that is doomed to failure. An army without Torah is doomed for failure. Torah without an army is also doomed for failure. We need both. David HaMelech says, why were we successful? In life? Because we were an army that was fueled by Torah. But it only works when everyone recognizes that we're in this together. When everyone recognizes that there is this synergistic partnership, that I'm learning for you and I'm fighting for you, and that somehow that synergistic partnership is finessed, so that everyone is literally on the same page, fighting and learning together. I've always thought, me, and again, I'm a no one in this, but I've always thought that there is this very, imagine for a moment a very simple remedy that goes like this. This is the problem with having that only after confidence, right? Imagine something goes like this. Imagine for one, you can't have a blanket exception for everyone. It doesn't work. That's sustainable. You cannot have a blanket exception. You have to establish some type of criteria. Whatever the criteria is, for those who are Torah Nassim, right? Those who are full-time learners, right? Can't be any guy who wants to do it because suddenly do it. That's whatever it is. An admission test, the criteria, right? A certain number of years that you're able to do it. There has to be a system. Imagine for a moment, right? those Yehidei Skula, that on every single army base, there was a kollel of Mitzvyanim who sat on the army base, not in a base measure far away from the front, on the front, and they wear uniforms like everyone else, right? Because the army of the Baruch Hu has fighters and has learners. And what happens? The soldiers go out to battle. Before they go out to battle, they get a bracha from those who are sitting defending them, learning Torah. Right? And when they come back, they get a bracha that they come back. And again, that whole Torah is palpable on every single army base in Eretz Yisrael. Imagine what that would look like for Klal Yisrael. Imagine what that would be like. And now suddenly, there's not an us and a them. There's not this community and that community. It's Am Yisrael. Because Am Yisrael means Bible fucking medrash from which the Kol Torah never ceases. And by the way, when the Kol Torah never ceases, there's another piece. Beinaz Mani doesn't have to be for a month. Right? Soldiers don't get off for a month on this active duty. So if you're an active duty learner, you also can't be schmeining around for weeks on end either. There has to be an urgency. There has to be a commitment. Whoever's fighting for Klal Yisrael, whether it's with the Neshek, with the gun, or with the Gemara, you're on. What we're missing is just so many. We don't feel that there's an interconnectedness. There's what we want, and there's what we want. Well, the moment Klal Yisrael goes down that road of different what we want, that's ultimately, I know, where there's divisiveness, and where there's divisiveness, unfortunately, nothing good ever comes of that. It's just David HaMelech understood it. Almost how you sharach Yerushalayim, where there's a vibrant synergistic partnership between the army and Torah. Klal Yisrael is invincible. Klal Yisrael is invincible. But when there's an us and a them, then unfortunately, we are highly vulnerable. We're living this right now. And it's a shame. It's a shame that leadership on both sides cannot get it together and cannot go ahead and recognize that anyone's personal agenda is so much less important than the national agenda. Come to the table, figure it out. We are people with unbreakable resolve, which unfortunately sometimes is our worst impediment. But put aside personal agendas, put aside personal needs, and figure out how to bring the nation together. With the Torah, with the army, with the base measures, with the Milchama, bring it all together. And that makes our people invincible. David HaMelech understood it. We have to figure it out as well. Otherwise, let's go back a little bit. It says, my Dixib, Shia Malas and David Samach Roman Beis Hashem nearly. So what does it mean when it says, right, a song of ascents? David HaMelech says, I rejoiced when they said to me, let's go to the house of Hashem. It's beautiful. This is wild. David HaMelech said, I heard people saying, when is this old man going to die? Now, by the way, who's the old man? It's David. So David said about him, right? People say about me, when am I going to die? The Yivna Beis HaBechira, but why are they saying it? Because they understood David wasn't going to build the Beis HaMikdash. Only Shlomo was. So people are like, when is David going to die already? Right? When is he going to die already so Shlomo can become king? Build the Beis HaMikdash. It could be all the regel to come
why don't, instead of talking about having to taking a dump allegedly, why don't you go do it?
I rejoiced.
And then...
I was like, can you imagine this? I rejoiced. So I was saying,
dude, what about all Parsha?
This is leadership. What leadership means is the needs
I'm
of the
signing
collective are more important.
I don't want to sign in
than
for
your
anything.
personal
Just do it.
agenda. So literally,
What
now
else?
Again, I'm not going to lie, a little bit crass of the people
Well,
to talk like
Safari.
this. Right. When is David going to die? So
Shout out to Julie and Henry
Kopczynski.
Kopczynski.
And we could just move ourselves forward, right? Okay, not the best way to articulate it. But David hears this.
Okay, using online library. Dog.
I
don't know, I gotta time out. Really? Yeah. Well, how much time do we have to make?
And what does it mean?
We're at 20 minutes, baby. Look at this athleticism. Footwork?
Is much less important than what the cloud needs. What I need is less important. And so at the end of the day, David HaMelech says, I was happy because Klal Yisrael wants to be Beis HaMikdash. I'm overjoyed. Amrullah Kadosh Baruch Hu, Rebbe Shalom said not so fast. So David HaMelech essentially says, Rebbe Shalom, take me. I'm ready to go. Take me. I'm happy to leave this world if it paves the way for Shlomo, paves the way for the Beis Hamikdash. This is not so fast. Well said. This is beautiful. He told Yom B'chatzirecha me'elef. Tov Yom Echad She'ata Osik B'Torah Lefanai me'elef Olos She'aseh Shlomo Bincha Lahakriv Lefanai Gaveh Mizbeach. The Baruch Hu says, David, not so fast. I'm not taking you one day early, because one day of your life in this world is better and more important to me than the thousands of karbanos that will be offered up on the altar that your son Shlomo will build. I will say, you understand the quantity of this Gemara? The power of a day, the power of the present. Shlomo represented the future. And while it's important to go ahead and plan for the future, it's important to think about the future, it's important to contemplate the future, never plan your future at the expense of your present. You know, Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein, who was the Yeshiva of Gush Har Etzion, he had a beautiful essay where he wrote about the idea. He called America the 401k society. Right? I don't know what 401ks are worth anymore. I don't know, right? A 401k society. So everything is about the future. Everything is about retirement. Right? People have all of these plans about what the future is going to be. There's only one problem. But it's good to plan for the future. There's only one problem. People put so much emphasis on the future that they forget to maximize the present. People stay in careers that are unmeaningful and unfulfilling because, again, it's going to give them some type of payout in the future. Right? And people compromise and sacrifice their present because now, again, you have to plan for the future, but you can't build your future at the expense of the present. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, David, hold up. Beis Hamikdash will come. You are a man who maximizes each and every day. Because of that, I'm not taking you from this world one day early. Let's go a little bit back here. Ultimately, again, remember, the pathways are identified between the Arei Miklot. Tanya, the Lazar ben Yaakov Omer, Amud Beis, Miklah. That is a long daf. Miklah, it's okay. Miklah, Chaya Kaza Pashas Drachim. Ultimately, again, there was a sign that said Miklat at the crossroads. In order that the Rotzeach, the murderer, ultimately, again, so again, the pathways were very clearly marked. Prepare for yourself. Ultimate, sounds like Sunday services. Right? So my krah, no, I don't understand. I'm just saying, right? I'm only batting for one team, I promise. My krah, talking l'cha derech, ultimately, again, prepare for yourself the pathway. So remember again, the pathways to the Miklat had to be very clearly demarcated. So Rav Chama Bar Chanina Plazak was the spell high parashas Amelcha. Rav Chama Bar Chanina, when he would go ahead and give a shear on Ir Miklat, right on the Ar Miklat, ultimately again he would open the shear with the following idea. Tov Yashar Shema Kin Yorechatam Badarach. It's beautiful. Ultimately, again, Hashem is good and just. Therefore, again, He shows the wicked the way. If Hashem shows the wicked the proper path, then Kal V'chomer and the Kadosh Baruch Hu will do for the righteous. From Shimon Lakish, this is all the intros, right? Whenever they would give shir on Arimik, they would always go ahead and insert the following way. Right? Ultimately, again, someone who acted without premeditation, and Hashem guided their hands.
Oh, I was looking at Safari.
So sometimes wicked things happen through wicked people. What is
I've seen it, Don. I've been in fucking Gemara classes for years. I've seen it done virtually.
Right, Reuben and Shimon both killed someone. Now,
how would you do it? Well, that's a good question.
Neither have witnesses. Watch this. Reuben and Shimon both killed someone.
Alright, so what do we do?
Shimon killed intentionally. Neither of them have any witnesses to their respective acts. So what happens? The Torah brings them together to an inn. Right? Shimon, the intentional killer, is sitting underneath the ladder. Reuben, the accidental killer, is coming down on the ladder. What happened? The Nafa alad v'hargo. Ultimately, again, Reuben falls on Shimon, And he kills him.
Where were we?
And he kills him. There's an inn full of people. So what happens? Each kind of gets what's coming to them. Shimon, who killed intentionally,
How would you do it?
Killed, and Reuben, he killed unintentionally. Now his witnesses is sent to Galus. So we'll say,
really?
What is what I'm trying to teach?
I mean,
we'll
I don't want to talk.
Runs a perfect world, right? And he choreographs everything.
The beginning of Tractate
Well, that's live as
Sometimes
fuck.
you don't see the choreography, but the choreography is always there. Just let God do his thing. Sometimes you become so impatient because the world looks so perfect and the circumstances look so perfect. The great choreographers got a multiple millions of
Alright, so we'll get to tractates. I know this is Kabbalah. We'll do Kabbalah this way too.
Let him do his thing.
Why? Because I don't want to fucking read it. My eyes are too bad. Really? Yeah, does it read this shit? No.
We'll just finish with this. There's a concept. The concept is these are just incredible Gemaras. Absolutely incredible Gemaras.
This shit
Gemara
sucks.
says, God
Dude, just read it.
path you want to take in life, and God
We've got to
helps you
catch
along
up
that
on the
path.
doc.
It's like a
like
loving
3
thing.
years.
What do parents do? Parents do their best to give
Really?
a child instruction.
Oh,
Right?
for
They
sure.
try to give necessary instruction, right?
Why?
But then what happens?
No one
Every
knows.
parent comes to that moment
Dude.
where they're like, you know what? You got to do what you
So what are we gonna do?
And I
I
can't
don't know.
help you not make mistakes.
Get this bitch
What
number
I can do is
6.
I can give you as much information. I can give you as
Dog,
much advice.
there's no way you're gonna
model
be able
the
to
right
review
behavior,
all this shit
but
every
then at a
single
certain
day.
point in time, you got to do you.
You already go over time.
Rosham gives us hadracha.
3A.
Rosham models for us everything we're supposed to do, everything we're supposed to be. But then at a certain point, Hashem says, I can't make
I hate
you
how
do
this fucking
anything.
thing is
I can't make you do anything. So
organized. Whatever ads will organize this shit.
You choose a path,
It's
Hashem
so fucking
says, and whatever path
Really?
you choose, I'll help you. But you have to choose the path.
Why?
Incredible. So the Gemara says,
It's just the
you see
worst.
examples of this
So
from
instead of being like page 1, we're like, hey, let's start on page 2. Why? Because page 1's like fancy. Let's just don't count page 1.
It's Torah by Bilam. By Bilam, right? Originally Hashem says to Bilam, Bilam, I don't want you to go with the messengers.
Okay, you got
Bilam
this.
insists on going, so Hashem says, fine.
The
This,
beginning of Tractate
This bitch-
Barakat.
this bitch got to talk faster though. Really? Yeah, because I don't have time to fuck around. I got shit to do.
I'll teach you.
And we
at the end of the
probably
day,
should
whatever
voice
path you
auto
choose,
select
I'll help you along it.
David. Speed, pitch, volume. That's all time. Show him pop
If you
up.
want to be a let's, right? If you want to be a scoffer, Hashem
Sure.
will help you with your scoffer kite.
Alright, get
And
this
if you
shit
want
together. Let's
to
go.
be- If you want to
The
be
infected Rabbah. First reading verse of Sigurd has been a wound state of resident from the resident from the and symptoms of and such based from
This is in English? Oh, unless they're reading the other shit.
The infected Rabbah. First reading verse of Sigurd has been a wound state of resident from the resident from the and symptoms of and such based from the Reading was log reading or reading as well.
But I can't
When there's what I'm doing my evening.
choose correctly.
From the recent
So
very well.
whatever you choose,
No one is an
Hashem
resident even what's it.
I'll
And then
help you
first
along that path.
That's not English. I know English.
I'm
I'm generally pretty good at it. Really?
Every day,
I do
Hashem
alright
sends
though.
down Shefa. Hashem sends
What
down
a test.
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that uses text-to-speech technology to convert web page text to
Yeah, we get that.
It works on a variety of websites, including news sites.
Yeah, well, this site, it sucks. Really? Oh, it's the worst. Dog.
To go down that road.
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that uses text-to-speech technology to convert web page text to audio.
Why is it-
That's when the energy comes down.
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox extension that uses text-to-speech technology to convert web page text to audio.
Okay.
It works on a
Alright, maybe this one.
Spiritual state.
Beginning of Tractate Barakat, the first tractate and the first of the 6 orders of Mishnah, opens with a discussion of the recitation of Shema, as the recitation of Shema encompasses acceptance of the yoke of heaven and of the mitzvah, and as such, forms basis for all subsequent teachings. The Mishnah opens with the laws regarding the appropriate time to recite Shema. Mishnah, from when, that is, from what time does one recite Shema in the evening? From the time when the priest entered to partake of the Terumah. The term used in the Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, to indicate the time for the recitation of the evening Shema is B'Shokah when you lie down, which refers to the time in which individuals go to sleep. Therefore, the time for the recitation of Shema is the first portion of the night when individuals typically prepare for sleep. That is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. The rabbis say, the time for the recitation of the evening Shema is until midnight. Rabbi Gamliel says, when we recite Shema until dawn, indicating that B'Shokah is to be understood as a reference to the entire time people sleep in their beds the whole night.
But I can't force you to make the right decision.
The Mishnah relates that Rabbi Gamliel practiced in accordance with his ruling. There was an incident where Rabbi Gamliel's sons returned very late from wedding hall. They said to him that they had been preoccupied with celebrating with the groom and bride. They did not recite Shema.
asked.
He said to them, if the dawn and night arrive, you are obligated to recite Shema. Since Rabbi Gamliel's opinion disagreed with that of the rabbis, he explained to his sons that the rabbis actually agree with him, and that it is not only with regard to the locked-up recitation of Shema, but rather wherever the sages say until midnight, the mitzvah may be performed until dawn. Rabbi Gamliel cites several cases in support of his claim, such as the burning of fats and limbs on the altar. Due to the quantity of offerings each day, the priests were often unable to complete the burning of all the fats and limbs, and so they continued to be burned into the night, as it is written. This is the law of the burnt offering. The burnt offering shall remain upon the fire on the altar all night until morning, while the fire on the altar burns it. Leviticus chapter 6, verse 2. And with regard to all sacrifices, such as the sin offerings and the guilt offerings that are eaten for 1 day and night, although the sages state that they may be eaten only until midnight, by Torah law they may be eaten until dawn. This is in accordance with the verse, on the day on which it is offered must you eat. Do not leave it until the morning, Leviticus chapter 7, verse 15. If so, why did the sages say that they may be eaten only until midnight? This is in order to distance a person from transgression, as if one believes that he has until dawn to perform a mitzvah, he might be negligent and postpone it until the opportunity to perform the mitzvah has passed. Tomorrow, the Mishnah opens with the laws concerning the appropriate time to recite Shema with the question, from when does one recite Shema in the evening? With regard to this question, the Gemara asks, on the basis of what prior knowledge does the Tana of our Mishnah ask, from when? It would seem from his question that the obligation to recite Shema in the evening was already established, and that the Tana seeks only to clarify details that relate to it. But our Mishnah is the very first Mishnah in the Talmud. The Gemara asks, and furthermore, what distinguishes the evening Shema, that it was not first? Let the Tana teach regarding the recitation of the morning Shema first. Since most mitzvah apply during the day, the Tana should discuss the morning Shema before discussing the evening Shema, just as the daily morning offering is discussed before the evening offering, Seven Harash. The Gemara offers a single response to both questions. The Tana bases himself on the verse as it is written, you will talk them when you sit in your home, and when you walk along the way, when you lie down, and when you rise, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7. By teaching the laws of the evening Shema first, the Tana has established that the teachings of the oral Torah correspond to that which is taught in the written Torah. And based on the written Torah, the Tana teaches the oral law. When is the time for the recitation of Shema of lying down as commanded in the Torah? From when the priest said it according to their Teruma. Just as the written Torah begins with the evening Shema, so too must the oral Torah. However, there is another possible explanation for why the Mishnah opens with the evening Shema rather than with the morning Shema. If you wish, you could say instead that the Tana derives the precedence of the evening Shema from the order of the creation of the world. As it is written in the story of creation, and there was evening, and there was morning, 1:8, Genesis chapter 1, verse 5. According to this verse, the day begins with the evening and not the morning. For both of these reasons, it was appropriate to open the discussion of the laws of the recitation of Shema with the evening Shema. The Gemara asks, so why does the latter clause of the Mishnah, which appears later in the chapter, teach, in the morning one recites 2 blessings before Shema and 1 blessing afterward, and in the evening one recites 2 blessings before Shema and 2 afterward? Based upon the above reasoning, the Mishnah should have had the blessing recited before and after the evening Shema first. The Gemara answers, indeed, the Tana began by discussing the laws regarding the recitation of the evening Shema, and then taught the laws regarding the recitation of the morning Shema. Once he was already dealing with the morning Shema, he explained the matters of the morning Shema, and then explained the matters of the evening Shema. So the Gemara proceeds to clarify the rest of the Mishnah. The Master said in the Mishnah that the beginning of the period when one recites Shema in the evening is when priests said it according to their Teruma. However, this does not specify a definitive time. When do the priests set it according to their Teruma? From the time of the emergence of the stars. If that is the case, then let the Tana teach that the time for the recitation of the evening Shema is from the time of the emergence of the stars. The Gemara responds, indeed it would have been simpler to say that the time for the recitation of the evening Shema begins with the emergence of the stars, but the particular expression used by the Tana teaches us another matter in passing. When do priests partake their Teruma? From the time of the emergence of the stars. And the Tana teaches us a new law parenthetically. Failure to bring an atonement offering does not prevent a priest from eating Teruma. In cases where an impure priest is required to immerse himself in a ritual bath and bring an atonement offering, even if he already immersed himself, he is not completely ritually pure until he brings the atonement offering. Nevertheless, he is still permitted to partake of Teruma. Taught in passing in our Mishnah, this is articulated fully in Verita based on a close reading of the biblical passages. As it was taught in Verita with regard to the laws of ritual purity, it is said, one who touches a remains impure until evening. He should not eat of the consecrated items, and he must wash his flesh with water. And the sun sets and it is purified. Afterwards, he may eat from the Teruma, for it is his bread, Leviticus chapter 22, verses 6 to 7. From the passage, the sun sets and is purified, that the absence of the saying of his son prevents him from partaking of Teruma, but failure to bring the atonement offering does not prevent him from partaking of Teruma, may be inferred. The Gemara discusses a proof offered in the Verita. From where do we know that the phrase, when the sun sets, refers to the complete saying of the sun, and therefore, and it is purified, refers to the fact that the day is pure, i.e. And the sun sets and it is purified is one phrase meaning that the sun will set, the air will clear, and the stars will emerge, Rabbi down. To me, perhaps the expression, when the sun sets and it is purified, refers to the very beginning of the sunset, the setting of the sun's light. According to that explanation, what does the expression "it is purified" mean? It means that the person will become purified. After immersing, he will wait until the beginning of sunset, and only then will he be able to eat of his teruma. Just quote. Rabbi ROTHSCHILD said, if so, that "it is purified" means that the priest goes and purifies himself, then let the verse say unambiguously, and he will become purified. Since the Torah does not employ that language, the conclusion is, what is the meaning of the expression "it is purified"? It means the day is pure, no residue of day remains, as people say colloquially. The sun has set and the day is purified.
Interestingly enough,
in the West, Eretz Israel, they did not hear this explanation given by Rabbi ROTHSCHILD. They raised the dilemma. Does the expression, "and the sun sets," refer to the actual setting of the sun, and does, "and it is purified," mean the day clears away? Or perhaps it refers to the setting of its light at sunset, in which case what is the meaning of "it is purified"? It refers to the purification of the person. In other words, in Eretz Israel, they attempted to clarify the law based on the biblical passage, but were unable to do so. Ultimately, they resolved this dilemma from Berita. It was taught in Berita that the time for the recitation of the evening Shema corresponds to the time when priests are permitted to eat of their teruma, the sign for which is the emergence of the stars. Therefore, derived from here that "and the sun sets" refers to the complete sunset, and the expression "it is purified" means the day clears away, as the sages of Babylon included.
is more
In our
chamer.
Mishnah, the Master said, the beginning of the time for the recitation of the evening Shema is from the time when the priest entered to partake their teruma.
He would be
The Gemara raises a contradiction to this opinion from Berida that states that the time for the recitation of the evening Shema is from when a poor person enters to eat his bread with salt until he rises from his meal. The Gemara begins its analysis by clarifying whether there is an actual contradiction here or whether different expressions are being employed to describe the same time. The latter clause of the Berida, which established that the time for the recitation of the evening Shema is when a poor person rises from his meal, certainly disagrees with our Mishnah. Since a poor person clearly does not continue eating until the end of the first watch, this Berida certainly contradicts our Mishnah. With regard to the first clause of the Berida, however, which establishes the beginning of the time for the recitation of the evening Shema, shall we say that it disagrees with our Mishnah? The Gemara immediately rejects this idea. No, the time when the poor person eats and the time when the priest is purified and permitted to partake of his teruma are one and the same time.
Which is considered to be a more chamer form of
there's so much to cover.
So ultimately, galus is not a chaper for that. So according to Rabbi Shimon, who holds that you only get chenek for even just injuring a parent, holds that galus cannot be mechaper for that.
Coffee.
Galus cannot be mechaper for that. Therefore, again,
Therefore,
Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion that ultimately, if a son kills his father, ultimately he does not go to galus. Because the death penalty that he is liable to is chenek.
Look, we gotta do Kabbalah, but you can
galus.
see the seeds of something very great are planted here. When I was allegedly taking a giant shit, I recognized that I could do this.
Father is more
Really?
than sayif, which is the general penalty one gets for taking.
I mean, I just hit play. This is but in reality, like I could guide a class through
So
this.
again, a shogeg that involves
So are you gonna do it? Not yet. It's too much.
That involves a sayif
We'll cover
penalty
everything we can in
can be
Kabbalah.
atoned for, but a shogeg that involves a
Really? Yeah, we'll
penalty,
read all
like
Kabbalah.
striking or killing one's father,
Like
galus
work away.
cannot be mechaper for. Therefore, the position of Rabbi Shimon
Why?
is that
Why
if a
not?
son accidentally kills his father, the son does not go to galus. That's the opinion reflected in the brisa that the Gemara just quoted. On the other hand, our Mishnah, which says that a son does go to galus for killing his father,
All right,
whose
Eliyahu
opinion
David.
is that? That's the Rabbanan.
Oh, I know about this guy. Wait, do I? Yeah, he's the guy who fought with. Didn't we already do this
the
guy?
general penalty you get when you kill someone. So the Rabbanan hold that sayif is more chamer than chenek. Therefore what? Therefore horik avid b'shogeg shigiga sayifu.
Didn't we do this guy yesterday?
No lakapara. So Rabbi says it's very interesting. So according to the Rabbanan
Yeah,
will
he
say
fought with
stam,
that other guy.
chenek, right? Or I should say sayif is more chamer than chenek. So therefore again, the fact that galus is mechaper for
Did we
sayif,
do Rashid
it's
Chokma?
certainly mechaper for chenek. And therefore according to the Rabbanan, a son would go to galus if he accidentally killed his father. So the Rabbanan is the position mentioned in our Mishnah, and the Shimon is the position mentioned in our Brisa. So it's very interesting just to see how all roads lead back to this machlokes in Sanhedrin, which is considered to be the more chamer form of Nisa. According to the Shimon, chenek is more chamer. According to the Rabbanan, sayif is more chamer. Why does this make a difference? Because in general, when you kill someone, you chayiv sayif. That's the difference when you chayiv sayif. Therefore, again, if galus be mechaper for sayif, according to the Rabbanan, mechaper for sayif, which is more chamer, considering mechaper for chenek, which is more kal. According to Rabbi Shimon, sayif is more kal. Galus takes care of sayif. Galus does not take care ultimately again of chenek. And that's machlokes. So both say, so therefore again, halacha l'maisa, our Mishnah reflects the view of the Rabbanan that if a son accidentally kills his father, a son is sent to galus. And both say that is how he casts him.
So then we actually have to go through a lot of shit
If a son
today.
accidentally kills his father, the son is subject to the laws of God. So we'll say there is a tremendous, there's trying to show Haskamas also, which shows you something fascinating, which is galus is a kapara. Right, galus, the whole idea of being exiled is atonement. It's important to understand, even kapara has its limitations, which is really fascinating to think about. Right? We like to think that forgiveness knows no boundaries. Atonement knows no boundaries. It's not true. There are boundaries. There are certain things that if you do, right, that if you do, ultimately you pass a line, and atonement is not possible. Now again, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's possible that atonement and forgiveness is boundless. But in the realm of man, right, in the realm of interpersonal relationships, there are certain lines that you cross that you cannot rebound from. You can't come back from it. So it's fascinating even to see that even galus, which is a form of kapara, it could be mechaber for a wide swath of things. But there is a certain point where if you go too far, and this is incredibly important also because this is why we must take heed and we must take so much care in our interpersonal relationships. Like, we all have situations like this. I think this often happens much more for men towards women and women towards men, which is you do something. Let's just call it to your spouse. You do something. And what happens? You recognize that you're wrong. And you have enough courage to admit that you're wrong. So you go over to your spouse and you apologize. Now, what's interesting to note is men, and Jesus who wired us, we make the assumption that if you apologize sincerely, what happened next? All is forgiven. It's sincere. The little tear coming out of the side of my eyes, it's sincere. And then sometimes, a person is shocked when the apology is not just automatically accepted, or even if it's accepted, it just doesn't reset the clock. And listen, it's very important to understand this is how human relationships work. When you do certain things wrong, sometimes you pass a certain point where the forgiveness cannot be automatically granted, or will not be automatically granted. It might be at some point later on. So even kapara, even atonement, it has its limitations. You can't atone for everything. You can't make up for everything. You can't achieve forgiveness in the realm of interpersonal relationships for everything. But the Torah is different. That's how it is. Like people, even young people, again, there's not look like this thing for everything. When it comes to relationships with each other, that's you got to figure out. It is incredibly important. This is why you have to take. I'm mentioning this now because especially over young kids, we end up spending a lot of time with family. And sometimes, although it's wonderful to spend a lot of time with family, sometimes, again, it can be a little bit of a setup for certain relationship showdown. And it's important for us to exercise incredible ease and caution. How we treat our spouses, how we treat our loved ones, how we treat our relatives. Because although it's nice to think that no matter what you do to be forgiven, it's not true. Sometimes in relationships there is a certain point where if you go too far, forgiveness ultimately again is not attainable. So you know those guys, even kapara has its limitations. Rabbi says, Rabbi understands over here. Rabbi understands that halacha l'maisa is actually not talking about killing your father. Oh, killing one's father. Rather, what is it talking about? Someone who inflicts a wound upon his father to show it. Right? So remember again, generally, even if a son injures his father, son hits his father, that's a key of Nisa. What happens if a son injures his father accidentally? So the Gemara says, I'm at a thought. This is the highest thing happening. I would have thought that since if a son intentionally injures his father, there's a key of Nisa. Maybe if he unintentionally injures his father, what's the halacha? Galus. Kamashmala, no. Kamashmala, that there is no galus. There's no galus in that type of situation. If a son accidentally injures his father, ultimately again, he's talking from Nisa. He may be hiding damages, right? Because Adam will be older. You're always hiding damages, even if you inflict them accidentally. But for myself, there's no galus for accidentally injuring one's father. Incredible. Let's go back there. Hakol golden idea Yisrael. So the Gemara says everyone, literally translated, everyone is exiled through Yisrael, which makes it sound like anyone who kills a Jew is subject to galus. It says the Gemara Hakol golden idea Yisrael. Who or what does this come to include? The Gemara says. Lastly, Eved B'Kusi. Coming to include an Eved. Remember, whenever we see an Eved, Eved means Eved Kanani, right? Eved Kusi. And I've also known what's unique about Eved Kanani. What's unique about Eved Kanani? So in general, whenever, there are only two groups of people who be partially Jewish, right? Celebrities and Eved Kanani, right? So in general, right? You can't be part Jewish. Either you're in or you're out. So what's interesting is the exception to that rule is actually Eved Kanani. Because remember again, a Jew acquires an Eved Kanani. He has Mila and Tevila l'shem apros, circumcision and immersion in the cross for the sake of being an Eved. That essentially gives him the obligation, like an Isha, like a woman. Then upon emancipation, he becomes a full-fledged Jew. So it's interesting, he is quasi-Jewish. Right, and a kusim. Now remember again, we'll say kusim. So remember, we use kusim a little bit in different ways in different contexts. Kusim sometimes can be synonymous with akum. So remember, kusim, we know again in their real categorical designation with this group of individuals from, surprisingly enough, to some, right, who converted. We settled in Eretz Yisrael by Shalvanezer, the king of Ashur. They were idolaters. It was an outbreak of lions in Eretz Yisrael because of their idolatry. They converted. But there's a whole focus whether or not their conversion was legitimate or not. So the Gemara says, who are we talking about? There's Eved and a Kusi. Watch this. The Gemara says, listen to this. Eved and a Kusi, go to the lokai de Yisrael. An Eved and a Kusi are exiled and lashed through Yisrael, based on what they do to a Jew. Now, what does this mean? The Yisrael go to the lokai de Kusi de Eved. And Yisrael ultimately is exiled and flogged based on a Kusi and Eved. What does this mean? So this one a Kusi the Eved go like they Yisrael lokai. So listen to this. I understand how an Eved and a Kusi could be Gola al Yidei Yisrael lokai. Listen to this. Gola. So for example, if an Eved or a Kusi killed the Jew accidentally, he could be sent to Galus, right? And Velokia, what's the case of Velokia? When would they get flogged? The Laksha, if they curse the Jew. So if an Eved or a Kusi accidentally kills the Jew, they could be sent to Galus. And if they curse the Jew, they could be flogged. Al Yisrael Gola Velokai de Kusi, but I understand what's the case of Yisrael being Gola Velokia, exiled and flogged based on the Kusi. So Bishlam of Gola, I can understand the case of Galus. When did Galus come up? The calculate. Let's say
You really
actually killed the Kusi. Okay. So
you really think you could
maybe he's exiled for that.
teach document? You really think you could? Yeah, I fucking attended it for years under multiple rabbis. I've been to Chabad Daf Yomis, Young Israel Daf Yomis, other Orthodox congregation Daf Yomis. I watched this motherfucker 24/7. He just sits there, reads footnotes. This asshole's just telling me about fucking history. You really think you could do it? Yeah, it's just the time. It takes a long fucking time.
Interesting. The case might be where, let's say, again, I testified against the Kusi.
So how would you do this?
Well,
I want to get through Kabbalah. I'd read everything in the... I guess we would just work our way backwards. It would be like that fucking Seinfeld where they go to India. So I guess we would...
what's the case?
Why? Just... I don't fucking know. We would...
Very interesting. The case could very well be where I injured the Kusi.
What would we do?
Or the Eved for that
Seriously,
matter.
what would we do?
And injured them in a way with an injury.
We would get through all of the Safaria Kabbalah shit. We get through all of these biographies. Then we go through all the texts. Not learn anything from there. And then we would just start off, I guess.
Nothing. But listen to this. Rashi says over here, Tap Rashi Pesach Aleph, She'ein Bo Shabbat Futo, She'yesh Bo Tashlumi Futa Mishali Ve'en Alok, the Afinim Be'ksubas Ve'lenaris. So it's very interesting. So the halacha is the Perush Setorah Chol Bo Bechaber Tashlum Ve'ein Bo Shabbat Futa Loke. So the interesting halacha about it, just on the side, we're always right. If you injure someone and it's less than a Shabbat Futa, there should be no liability for damages, but you get malchus. You get malchus, right? Which I will say, by the way, makes sense from the perspective of societal order, right? In other words, that you can't just go around injuring people, and even if there's not financial liability for you, it's got to be some level of liability. So the case could be where I injured the Eved of the Kusi, less than a Shabbat Kuta, but I look for a nice thing, and I get malchus. loka. If you injured it with a hakal less than a shara fudah, ultimately again you get malchus. The lo makshin hakal l'klala, and we won't go ahead and equate injuring with cursing. Now it's two separate set of halachas. Just because there might be liability for injuring doesn't mean there'll be liability for cursing. Okay, chutz me'ayidei gertoshav. So what's it? So it's interesting. So the Mishnah said, except by gertoshav, right? It says yisod olin ayidei chutz me'gertoshav. The gertoshav ain't no gola ayidei gertoshav. Remember again, who's the gertoshav? The gertoshav is a guy, right? He's a non-Jew who lives in Eretz Yisrael and essentially accepts all Sharmish husband and God. Okay, so what's Amma, gertoshav always go having. Now, obviously, the fact that it sounds like that a Jew is not exiled because of a gertoshav sounds like the gertoshav has the gene of an apple, of a non-Jew. So he wants to aim a safe. Have a look again in the Mishnah. Gertoshav gola ayudei gertoshav. So it sounds like if the gertoshav kills another gertoshav, he would be sent to Galus. So the Gemara says. So what's going on over here? Amar Avkana Lokasha, Kan the gertoshav shara gertoshav, Kan the gertoshav shahara Yisrael. One is talking about a case of a gertoshav who kills another gertoshav. That gets Galus. That gets Galus. So the other case is the case of a gertoshav who kills a Jew who does not get Galus. Now, we'll say, and this is very interesting to what we said before. Galus, what is Galus? What is Galus? What is Galus? Galus is a kapara, it's an atonement. Now remember again, in order for atonement to work, the sin itself can only be up to a certain level of severity. If it goes beyond the severity threshold, then Galus can't work. So therefore, but if a gertoshav kills a Jew, even accidentally, that act is of such great severity that it is too great to be atoned for through Galus, right? We kind of look at not going to Galus as like, you know, you're getting off, right? You're getting off. You're not being held liable. It's the opposite, right? When you don't get Galus, it means that the act has risen to such a level of severity that it cannot be
I just was thinking like I want to still be able to wear a kip on that.
Galus. So look at Rashi just a moment. Rashi says gertoshav. It's right across from Rashi. Gertoshav, shar gertoshav. Gola. So therefore, again, the Gemara seems to be resolving it like this: if a gertoshav kills a gertoshav, he goes to Galus. But if a gertoshav kills
so what are you thinking?
he does not go to Galus because that act is too great to be atoned for through Galus. Incredible. So others bring this conversation in a different way, contrasting circle. Listen to this. Ksiv. B'nei Yisrael, v'lager v'latoshav b'socham, siena sheish ha'aretz. Remember, here's what's interesting. The pasuk explicitly says, right, B'nei Yisrael, right, for the ger, and the toshav who lives in their midst, these 6 cities. Now, which 6 cities are we talking about? Sorry, it's actually our next Mishnah, or two Mishnahs from the Mishnah, from the right, so we'll talk about the 6 cities. So interestingly enough, what do you see from this pasuk? The gertoshav is included in the halachos of pure mikra. It is mentioned here explicitly. So the Gemara is listening to the but then the pasuk says these cities will be for you. Lachem for the for you and not for you. And the most important obviously in this context doesn't mean what? Doesn't mean convert, right? The convert is a regular Jew. It means gertoshav. So which one is it? Well, I'm not sure. Lokasha. Can be gertoshav shahar Yisrael. Can be gertoshav shahar gertoshav. It all depends who you're killing. But you know, right? All depends who you're killing in life, right? So in other words, again, if a gertoshav is killing another gertoshav, then you're mikvah. If a gertoshav is killing a Jew, no you're mikvah. Okay. So immediately Gemara is attached to the bicha. Therefore, all the chacham shahargu meharati. This is the list. The Gemara says. The Gemara says the middle. Where is the kasha? Yeah. Ger v'ovei kocham shahargu. Right. So if the ger and the ovei kocham killed, meharati. Ultimately, again, they're killed. So the Gemara says, here, what's interesting about this? What's interesting is we're putting ger and akum in the same sentence. Now, once you look at ger in this context, always means what? Ger toshav. Because remember again, when it comes to the halachos of things, accidentally killing, Right? So what does it matter if a person's converted or a person's born Jewish? It makes absolutely no difference. A Jew is a Jew. So it makes it interesting to note over here that the Ger and the Oved Chachamim are put together. So Ger and Oved Chachamim Shahargu, Neheradim. Hatani Ger, Jumia to Oved Chachamim. Now listen, the Torah sounds like the concept of the Pasuk. The Brisa is equating a Ger to an Oved Chachamim. Also, not Oved Chachamim, Loshna, the Kadol Banine, Loshna, the Kadol Banine, Nera, the second Akum will say, whether the Akum killed someone like him or killed someone who was not like him. In other words, whether another Oved Chachamim or a Jew, what's the halacha? Kadol, right? He's killed. Right? He kills a Ben Noah is executed. He is for accidental murder. Ger, Loshna the Kadol Banine, Loshna the Kadol Banine, Nera. So it sounds like we're treating the halacha of the Ger Toshav with an Akum. What's going on over here? So it sounds like the Ger Toshav is not subject to Galus at all. Rafkista Lokashia, listen to this. Kansha Hargu Gareth Mirida, Kansha Hargu Gareth Aliyah. All very interesting. So the Gemara wants to make a suggestion. Maybe it matters how the Ger Toshav is killing. So again, if he kills Gareth Mirida, or is in a downward motion, that's Shogeg, he'd be subject to Galus. If he kills Gareth Aliyah, that's not considered to be a cardinal piece of Shogeg, and therefore what? Not subject to Galus, rather to execution. Gareth Mirida, he saw Gali, even when he's staggered with Galus. So just like a Jew. Right? So in this respect, the Ger Toshav is somewhat similar to a Jew. Just like a Jew goes to Galus when he kills someone, Gareth Mirida, so too if the Ger Toshav kills another Ger Toshav, Gareth Mirida will go to Galus. Another Gareth Aliyah, he saw Potter, Gareth Aliyah where he saw Potter. If a Jew kills someone, Derech Aliyah, somebody had all these cases, he's lifting the bucket, right? And the rope snaps and it falls down. Or he's pulling the roller up and it falls down and kills someone. The Jew doesn't go to Galus in those circumstances. In those circumstances, who Nera, a Ger Toshav will be executed. Okay? Amari Rabbi. So Rabbi wants us to justify. So so therefore, what it sounds like the Gemara saying is like this: is a Ger Toshav is subject to Galus when he kills another Ger Toshav, not subject to Galus when he kills a Jew. Furthermore, a Ger Toshav is only subject to Galus if he kills Gareth Mirida, but if he kills Gareth Aliyah, it ultimately is executed like an Akum, who is held liable for any act of bloodshed as well. Amri Rabbi, Valav Kavachomer, Rabbi Shmuel, Izmir Kavachomer, Umar Gareth Mirida, Son Gali, Ihu Nani Sagiveda Galus. Right, ultimately, I go with Gareth Mirida, where a Jew goes to Galus. So certainly, again, a Ger Toshav will go to Galus as well. Gareth Aliyah, the Yisrael Potter, Ihu Nera. Doesn't make sense to say that Gareth Aliyah, where a Jew is Potter from Galus, that a Ger Toshav is executed. Does that make sense? Allah Amarava, this is fascinating. Allah Amarava, Ba'omer Mutter. What's the piece over here, both sides? The piece over here is Omer Mutter. What's Omer Mutter? Rashi says over here, Nerab Belav Bar Galus. What are we talking about over here? A Ger Toshav is permitted to take a life. Omer Mutter, he didn't know that halacha. He thought it was permitted to go and kill someone. That's called Omer Mutter. So Rabbi wants to suggest that ultimately, again, a Ger Toshav who kills someone in the context of Omer Mutter ultimately is put to death. He's executed. Only Abaye, Omer Mutter, honest. Omer Mutter, that would be honest. No, wouldn't that be honest? So if a person thinks that it's permitted to go ahead and take a life, wouldn't that be a case of honest, extenuating circumstances? To which the Gemara says, Amalei Shani Omer Mutter Karov Lamezit. You know, once I Rabbi holds, I hold that Omer Mutter is Karov Lamezit. Karov Lamezit. But ultimately, again, this is not considered to be honest, but rather ultimately, again, this is Karov Lamezit. And we're saying now, again, what's the life? So let's see, they go according to their reasoning. The Itmar, Kasavar Ben Luminim Sa'adam, let's listen to this. Let's say Ger Toshav is out hunting. He thinks he sees an animal. Right? But he accidentally kills a person. So in other words, it turns out that it wasn't an animal, it was a person. Which I will say shows you something amazing. It shows you how low a person could sink if they could be mistaken for an animal. Right? Sometimes a person could debase himself to such a level that you're mistaken for a behemoth. So the son of the name of an Adam, he not even said Ger Toshav, or again, he thought it was a non-Jew, but it turned out to be a Ger Toshav. What's halach in these cases? So interestingly enough, in these cases, the Ger Toshav killed, it was intention to take life. He just thought it was what? A different life. In In case one, he thought it was an animal, turned out to be a person. In case two, he thought it was an apple, turned out to be another ger tosha. Rabbi Amar Chai. Rabbi says Chai. The judge says Chai. This why? Omer mutter karov lamezid. Because just because you think something is mutter, right? That borders on mazid. That borders on mazid. The Chisda says Potter. The Chisda on the other hand says the halacha l'maisa again. Potter. Why Omer mutter anasu? Ultimately, again, he holds that Omer mutter ultimately again is only. So let's say, it's such a fascinating machlokas, right? Which has tremendous hashkafic implications as well. What's Omer mutter? What's Omer mutter? Omer mutter essentially is really one of two cases. Either a person thought things were a certain way, but did not take the time to clarify what the actual circumstances were. Or a person literally lacked knowledge, but did not take the necessary steps to clarify or to gain that knowledge. So what is that? What is that? In life, I will say, no, this happens all the time to us. Like Omer Moshe, I did something because I didn't take the time to clarify what the actual circumstances were. Or I did something and I did not know what I did was prohibited. And now after the fact, what is my level of liability for not having taken the necessary steps to clarify the circumstances or to gain the requisite knowledge to operate properly? What is my liability? So it's not focus, right? It says, okay. It's ones. It's called the ones, right? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, if it wasn't intentionality to do anything terrible, card going. So this is what you're talking about. That's card of limitation. It's card of limitation. You should have been more, why not take the time in life to clarify the circumstances? Why not take the time to practice or knowledge you need to operate properly? And failure to do so, don't say always, the time to clarify the circumstances around you. I didn't take the time to acquire the necessary knowledge. That's a failure on my part. That's a failure on my part. Okay, is it lazy? Okay, no, it's not going to rise to lazy, but you know what? It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing. And let's say, in the all agree, we'll see what the halacha l'maisa is. But hashkafa l'maisa is Omer mutter is absolutely kind of amazing. Omer mutter, failure to clarify the circumstances around you and acting without that clarity, or acting without taking the time to acquire proper knowledge and proper tools to make informed decisions, and then making poor decisions or acting in a wrongful fashion, I am liable for that. I am absolutely liable for that. Right? I am responsible to clarify circumstances before I make decisions, and I am responsible to acquire the necessary knowledge to lead an informed life. And failure to do so, that's on me. That's on me. Halakha l'maisa will see in a little bit. Let's go back to it. Says the Gemara, so Rabbi is Chisda, Hincha makes Ali Isha Shalakachtas. Listen to this. Avimelech. Okay, remember again about the story of Avimelech? Avinu goes to Gerar. And remember again, when he goes to Gerar, he says to Avimelech, she says to Sarah, Imrina Achosia, tell them that you're my sister. Right? So what happens? Avimelech goes down and takes Sarah, and then the whole household is stricken by a terrible plague. And then Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Avimelech, you are going to be executed, right? You're going to be killed because of this married woman that you took. So the Gemara says, "My lab b'din shamayim." Does it not mean ultimately again that halacha l'maisa is going to be executed by heaven? Now remember again, Avimelech is a case of Omer Mutter. Omer Mutter, right? He thought that she was Avram's sister, and therefore again she was eligible. She was eligible. The Gemara says, no. Might not be the other. So does it not show us that if Ben Noah is held accountable for Omer Mutter? Like he literally again, I'm not saying he executed. No, Hashem is saying, Avimelech, in a court of law, you would not be found guilty. Because when I say again, Omer Mutter is Karav La'ones. Like Papa Shemaim, as like Rabbi Powerful, you would absolutely be held liable. Taken on it, Mechato Li. The powerful phrases it as Avimelech, you're sinning towards me. Towards me. Or Tame, using this logic for Chatasi Le'elokim. When it says Chatasi Le'elokim, and let's say, again, this is by Yosef. This is by Yosef, right? When Eish Potiphar is trying to seduce him, and Yosef essentially says to her, how can I do this? If I do this, the Chatasi Le'elokim. So the Gemara says, Le'elokim lo Adam. So Yosef is committing a crime just to kind of against them. Adultery. Again, so what are you going to crime punishable again in a human court of law as well? Ella, you know, must of the Adam. Rather, again, what you have to say is, as much as Yosef was saying that I'd be seen against God, it would be against God, but it would also be a din that would be handed over to the human court. That means, you know, must of the Adam. So to over here, Avimelech's din would have also been handed over to a human court. So what do you see from here, according to Rabbi? What do you see from here? That Omer Mutter is cut off from Esau. Right? That ultimately, just because someone thinks something is Mutter, nevertheless, Omer Mutter is almost rises to the level of intentionality. Says Rabbi the Rabbi Sabai is professional to Rabbi Hagoy Jan Sadik Taro. So ultimately, Avimelech says back. Ultimately again to Akadosh Baruch Hu. He says, are you going to go ahead and just kill an innocent person? So it sounds like, now remember, ultimately Hashem forgives Avimelech, which makes it sound like God agreed with Avimelech. Omer Mutter is Harav La'onis. Hashem to become a Haji Iliyah. La'ata Hashem Ishes Ha'ish Kinabihu. And Baruch Hu tells Avimelech, return Sarah. Here's the thing. Check out Musa. She knows how to do that. Shiloh will not get a kind of sacrifice. So we're going to see that Hashem did not agree with Avimelech. But Avimelech wanted to portray himself as a victim. Right? I'm a victim in this. After all, again, they conspired. Right? They both said, she's my sister. What was I to do? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you're not innocent. You're not innocent. Maybe Omer Mutter is not Karav L'Mezid. Maybe so. But for myself, still, you're not innocent over here. Why not? So it's very true. So Hashem says to Avimelech, return Sarah to Abram, because Abram is a Navi. So you must understand. The Lav Navi Lokada, I understand. So you have to return a man's life because he's the prophet, and if he's not a prophet, you don't have to return his life. This is what Hashem said to Avimelech.
Recognition as a Gadol, return Gadol, great. Serves as a form of recognition of the scholar as a premier authority and the highest caliber, a leader includes philosophy.
So maybe Avimelech, now you're gonna play like the victim card. Right, you know, so I did a victim. Right, everyone says it's terrible, right? Avimelech, see, it's not just in 2025 that everybody's in it, right? Avimelech, you're the victim. You're the victim.
Traditionally reserved almost exclusively for
not the victim. Hello, because after all, again, Abram said to me, that's why my sister. Do you know why Abram said to you, my sister? She's my sister. Novihu. Because Abram was a very smart man. Abram was a prophet. And he understood how things were working here in your Tehillah. Right? He understood how things are happening over here in your community. Why would happen? He understood from your behavior how you have to operate. So listen, when someone shows up in the city, right? When somebody shows up in town, right, and they're standing next to a woman, right, generally, what's the question you ask them? Right, and ask a guest, you have a place to sleep, you have a place to eat. The first question you ask them is, hey, who's she? Right? Is that your wife or your sister? Right? Generally, again, it does not portend well for the particular community. So Adam Avinu being a Navi, and what's in this context being Navi means he was an insightful individual. So he understood already, again, coming into Torah, that this was a place of incredible immorality, and that they would have possibly killed Abram and Sarah had they recognized that ultimately, again, and she was his wife. So because he wasn't ready, because he wasn't ready, therefore he acted in a certain way. But Avimelech ultimately, again, the fact that these are the questions that he was asking him down to Grai is in and of itself an indictment of you and your community. So don't bring the victim card, right? Don't bring the victim card. Shekin Mikan Benoach Nerad Shalomot Ravavad. What is keeping here? So ultimately, again, it comes back to reject Avimelech's claim of Omer Moshe, right? He rejects his claim. He rejects his Avimelech. You are liable. Okay, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to kill you because I recognize that you did not act intentionally. But please understand that at the end of the day, a Benoach is held liable for Omer Moshe. Looks like that's how the Ma'aseh. That's how the Gemara ends off. Right? And Benoach who thinks that something is Moshe, and if we're operating in that way, he should have learned. And he should have clarified the circumstances. He should have learned what is not. And failure to clarify your circumstances, failure to clarify and learn, ultimately results in liability and culpability. Incredible. Incredible. Says Mishnah. Asuna in a gola. Says the ancient. A blind person is not exiled. Right? So what this is talking about over here is that a blind person kills someone, like accidentally kills someone, he is not sent into Golas. Right? Rabbi says, yes, he is killed. He's exiled. He's exiled. Quite interesting. Hasone in a gola. So let's do this. Let's say Reuben accidentally kills Shimon. Reuben and Shimon are bitter enemies. Bitter enemies. So what's the halacha? Tanakama says Reuben is not exiled. Rabbi Yossi says Hasone in Nerag. According to Tanakama, the Sone, right? The enemy, right? Reuben and Shimon are enemies. Reuben accidentally kills Shimon. Tanakama says Reuben's not going to go to Galus, but also not going to do anything else. Right? We're not going to do anything else. On the other hand, Rabbi Yossi says that a Sone is executed. Wow. So that means Reuben accidentally killed Shimon. So let's just understand, right? Reuben's going ahead and walking down the ladder. Reuben falls off the ladder, falls onto Shimon, and kills him. So the Tanakama holds Reuben's not going to go to Galus for that. But okay, but we're also not doing anything else then. Rabbi Yossi holds we're actually going to execute Reuben for that. Wow. Why? Ultimately, again, because Reuben is considered to be forewarned. Right? Why? Because since this real
as the first of your kneading you shall set aside a fellow as a portion. From the first of your kneading you shall give a portion to Hashem
and therefore, again,
for your
if he kills Shimon, he's actually executed for that. Wild, I will say. It's absolutely wild. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon says, Yish Sone Gola, Yish Sone Shena Gola. Sometimes an enemy is exiled, sometimes an enemy is not exiled. For example, Zaklau, Kosher Yochol Lomar, Lidas Harak in a Gola, the Shalom Das Harak Hareza Gola. So what's very interesting, Rabbi Shimon says, essentially, we have to look at the circumstances. If it's clear that it was an accident, then Halakha said there's Golas. If there's any suffix about the accidental nature of events, then ultimately he won't go to Golas. Very interesting. So I said you were talking about so we'll say first thing we're going to do is a blind guy, right? So remember again, Machlokes, does a blind man go to Golas if he accidentally kills someone? Right? Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Meir says yes. So turn about them. Okay, so it's very interesting. So the pasuk, when it talks about it, says the whole Aben Asher Yalmos brought the low rolls. So we'll say when it talks about the accidental killer, it says he didn't see. Now the pasuk tells you he didn't see. He wasn't aware, right? So remember again, you've been chopping wood. A splinter flies off, kills Shimon. He didn't see Shimon in the vicinity. He didn't see it. But now this is the actually below those. We don't say this literally. That someone without sight doesn't go to Galus. And there below those, the Rabbi says Asuma. The Mir says no, below those comes to actually include a blind person. Right? Even someone who is below the O's, ultimately again goes to Galus. Fundamental focus. My time to be look at the logic. You see, right? So remember again, the pasuk sounds like Reuben and Shimon coming